Okay, everybody, good evening. We're just going to start in a minute or two, but while I have your attention, there are two things I'd ask. One is that you take this moment, please, to put your phone on vibrate. 100 people just reach for their phones. Okay, the second thing we're going to do, just to make sure that the energy in the room is really good, we're going to start over here, and we're going to do the wave. Anybody remember the wave? Okay. This is going to be really easy because we're only going from here to here. But we're going to start right here. So we're going to start on the bima, we're going to go around doing the wave, then this whole section to the back, then back from the back and up to the front. Okay? Ready? And when I'm satisfied that there's enough energy in the room, then we'll start this program. Okay? Ready? How about some cheering? Come on. Okay, not bad. But when we're done, everyone's supposed to cheer like you haven't been outside for 2 years. Okay? Ready? We're going to start again. Ellen, you kick it off. Cheer. Whoa! Okay, not bad, not bad. Let's get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Howard Teagle, and I am the current president of the Merit Jewish Center. Actually, I have held the role twice, from July 2013 to June 2015, and then again since July 2020. Now that makes me both the 19th and the 23rd individual who has had the incredible privilege of working with Rabbi Klein as president since his arrival at the MJC in 1978. Now, during our 3.5 years together in this capacity, we have exchanged over 70,000 emails and texts, plus or minus 20,000, spoken on the phone at least 2,000 times, attended more than 125 meetings together, and spent at least 500 hours sitting with each other on this bima. And along the way, not only has he been an incredible rabbi, an incredible teacher, and a wonderful collaborator, but he has also become one of my very, very best friends and someone I deeply, deeply treasure. And to those of you joining us tonight, who have also served as president of the MJC at some point during 1978, or the time between 1978 and now. Just to be clear, for the record, and there really is no doubt about this at all, I am definitely Rabbi and Betty's favorite. No doubt about it. Welcome everybody to tonight's event. It is wonderful to see so many of you here in person, and we are thrilled that so many of you could join us on the live stream. You know, all of us have gathered here to celebrate two extraordinary individuals who have been so impactful to our congregational community and such a meaningful part of our own lives over the last 43 plus years, Rabbi Charles A. Klein and Betty Klein. I assure you that this program tonight will comprise a night that all of us will remember for a very, very long time. Now, tonight's event is also the culmination of several months of extremely hard work by an amazing group of extremely dedicated individuals that I had absolutely no doubt would construct an event worthy of our honorees. So I want to thank our co-chairs who are sitting behind me, Linda and Lou Waltman, Eileen and Howie Siegel, Ellen and Alan Sussman, and somewhere maybe in the back, Frank Sakakis. Okay, So let's get started. Let's get started. What better way to celebrate Rabbi and Betty and their innumerable contributions to the Merrick Jewish Center than to hold tonight's event, hosted by an extraordinary special MC, none other than world-famous comedian Jerry Seinfeld. Well, that would have been fantastic, right? But unfortunately, Jerry wasn't available, so instead, let me call to the mic the most famous comedian from Row E, our good friend and past president, Alan Sussman.
Thank you, Howard. And, you know, I ain't Seinfeld, but I will take Howard's challenge as to who the most popular president is. And you threw down the gauntlet, and I think we got a couple of other guys who are going to join me in this competition. Anyway, I'm Alan Sussman, as Howard said, past president and member of the MJC for the last, with my wife Ellen, for the last 43 years, the same amount of time as Rabbi and Betty. We came just a little bit after them. And my best part of being in the Merrick Jewish Center was, until I moved 2 months ago, I spent the last 20 years as a member of the Rabbi's Posse, along with Linda Altman, Howard, and Barry Wolanski. Now, what's the Rabbi's Posse? We're the bunch of folks who accompany the rabbi every Shabbos morning to bring him to shul. Why does the rabbi need a posse to bring him to shul? You're going to have to ask him. I'm not going to go through that old joke of the rabbi sleeping late. In any event, so here we are, 43 years, 4 months, and 11 days in the making. And what a way to have a retirement party. No food, no drink, everyone's wearing a mask. When some of us were kids, the only person wearing a mask was the Lone Ranger, right? I'd like to take a moment before we go on to introduce some of our special guests. And we'll start with Rabbi and Betty's sons, Avram, Barry, and Josh, their daughter Naomi, Rabbi's brother Eric, and Jeff, and Jeff's wife Barbie, and Betty's uncle Norman. Hi, Norman. Additionally, Hempstead Supervisor Don Clavin is here as well, so we thank him for coming. So what are we doing this evening? We're going to take an exceptional and candid look at the life and extraordinary career of Rabbi Charles Klein. It's the story of a young rabbi who heeds the admonition of the parsha we read 2 weeks ago, Lech Lecha. Like our patriarch Abraham, he set out from the country of his forefathers, Queens, to seek the promised land, Eretz Merrick. He brought with him a young wife, 2 small sons, one only a few months old. That would be you, Barry, right? Lots of enthusiasm, fresh ideas, a full beard, and a lot more hair. He helped raise 2 generations of our congregational family, shaping the values and beliefs and instilling in our children, and indeed in all of us, the wisdom of our faith. We'll celebrate Rabbi Klein, but we'll also meet the man behind the pulpit in his own words. Yup, Klein, raw and unvarnished. It's a journey that we've all been a part of, but only just a part. So for all of us, it will be a journey of discovery. Before we proceed any further, I'd be remiss if I didn't deeply thank a man who wears so many hats. In fact, he has more hats than the rabbi has yarmulkes. A brilliant and talented writer, editor, producer, director, and showrunner this evening, Frank Supovitz. Without Frank's creativity and know-how, we would have been up the proverbial creek without a paddle. Frank suggested we tell this journey through a comprehensive and revealing interview worthy of nothing less than 60 minutes. That's 60 Minutes, the TV show, not 60 minutes. Well, it is 60 minutes of interview also. He wrote the questions, conducted the interview, and edited it into 10 chapters. And each will be introduced by some special guests and longtime members of our congregation. We'll also be enjoying and participating in some terrific musical numbers. And needless to say, what's a retirement party without some special presentations to the guests of honor? So we have those. And of course, even though we will have spent a good portion of this evening listening to the rabbi in video, both he and Betty will be speaking to us live, right here on our bima. Yes. You know, when I told Rabbi that our committee was preparing a special event for him this evening, he said, and I quote, "No, I don't need an event. Just give me a bagel and I'll be on my way." Remember that? Well, Rabbi, we've got a special bagel for you. It looks like a challah, but it was baked as a bagel. There'll be some cream cheese and lox on the way out. So my friends, sit back, relax, get your tissues out. We'll have an evening that's both bittersweet and sweet, humorous and serious, joyful and perhaps a little tearful. But hopefully, we'll be providing Betty and Rabbi with an event they will long remember with joy and fondness. At the very least, we owe them that for their exceptional devotion, compassion, kindness, and generosity of spirit that they have provided to all of us. Right now, I'm pleased and honored to present the opening segment of our presentation. A dear rabbi has decided to retire. We ask the question, why now? I gotta get rid of this bagel.
There was a time when you threw something at me, I would say, put more on my plate. Put more, heap it up higher and higher. I could do 10 appointments a day, run to do this, go into the city for the Board of Rabbis, go teach at the seminary, write a book, do a television show on the Catholic channel. I could do it all. But it does seem that things get a little bit more difficult, burdens get a little bit heavier to carry. And I think there's something else that people probably don't understand about the rabbinate. People tend to think the rabbinate is, well, he's at the pulpit where, that's my playground, the pulpit. That's where I've been for all these years. And, occasionally we'll call him maybe to do a wedding, there'll be a bar mitzvah. People don't understand, because they can't, that this job does crush the soul. It does crush you. And all you have to do is look at the memorial boards here. There were times, thousands of them, where I could do a bar mitzvah, do a wedding in the morning and a funeral in the afternoon. I find the roller coaster ride is harder. It leaves me with a bit more whiplash. I have been good at some things I've done, but the thing that I've been miserable at, really, really miserable at, my big failure, I think, in life is that I've never been able to really manage life-work balance. I didn't know how you could balance work and life. And Betty really, she had to handle everything. All the time, in terms of the family. And I'm saying, Friday night, we'd have Shabbos dinner, I'd be here for services. Shabbos, I'd be here. Sundays, I'm running. I'm running to the cemetery, I'm running to weddings. I used to rendezvous with the family at the cemetery. We convinced our kids, when they were young, that the cemetery was a playground. We go, "Where are we meeting, Daddy?" Because what are you going to tell the kids? You're going to meet at the cemetery? We're going to meet at the playground, at the field. That was hard. And that was very hard, and to this day, it remains hard. And I want to have some balance in my life. I really do. And Betty deserves it. She deserves me not being rushed and not passing her by in the house as I'm going out to this or going out to that. Why retire now? A wise colleague said to me, retire when you know it's time and before they know it's time.
Good evening. I'm delighted and grateful to be here on this very special evening. I'm George Feld, and here's a little bit about the so-called early years. It's 1962, probably before some of you were born. My late wife, Arlene, and I, and two of my children at that time, Joel and Jody, moved to America. Our just-built, brand-new, $24,000 home on Judith Drive off Winston is literally the third one from the end of Merrick. Jones Beach is in our sight. We soon realized that our son Joel is about to be 8. We need to find a Hebrew school for him to prepare for his bar mitzvah. So we go synagogue shopping. Orthodox, too Orthodox. Reform, too Reform. Merrick Jewish Center, conservative, just right. It seems that most of the congregants are elderly. Both the rabbi and the cantor wear black robes, and the cantor is accompanied by a loud organ up there in the choir loft. The main Sabbath services are at 8 o'clock on Friday night, followed by coffee and cake, of course. There were many rumblings about the rabbi who had been there for many, many years, not really involved with congregants on a daily basis, and half the board wanted him to retire, and when he would not do so, they all resigned. All men, of course, and in an era when no women were allowed anywhere near the bima. Rabbi Lippman eventually did retire, and we had a succession of, I think, 3 rabbis over the next few years. During that time, I was involved in the Bar Mitzvah Committee, the House Committee, the Financial Committee, with its usual problems, by the way. You know, we sometimes take for granted that the Merrick Jewish Center is one of the most dynamic and important Jewish institutions on the South Shore of Long Island. And indeed, we have achieved a great deal over the past half-century in our community and well beyond. But it wasn't always that way. Back then, we were competing for members with other local congregations. We needed to set a new course for the Jewish community in our area. We needed a new, seasoned, outstanding rabbi. And in 1977, I became president just in time to begin that search for an experienced rabbi who could bring vigor and real Jewish meaning to a divided congregation. One who, with his extensive background and abilities, could bring understanding and spiritual help to our older members, and one who could rally our younger members to participate in the congregation. I don't recall exactly how or by whom, but I was given the name of a rabbi in Queens who was seeking to kind of move up the ladder. And so I called and invited that rabbi to meet with our board. He and his very pregnant wife arrived exactly on time. They parked across the street from the Fox Boulevard entrance. That was the only entrance to the synagogue at that time. And as I walked up the steps, I was not at all sure I wanted to bring this 27-year-old, baby-faced, very young man into the meeting. Could he ever meet the spiritual needs of our older congregants? And what would our younger members think about him? He was younger than most of them. But his response to the board's questions, his own words about how he believed he could meet our synagogue's needs, so impressed us that the board invited him to lead a Shabbat service. Those at the service were similarly impressed. That young rabbi was then approved at a congregational meeting, and the rest, fortunately for our beloved Merrick Jewish Center and all of us, is our incredible history. Thank you, my friend, Rabbi Charles A. Klein.
When I came here for an interview in January '78, the process certainly wasn't as arduous as it is today in the rabbinate. I listened to colleagues, younger colleagues, what they go through. My God, 10 interviews, do this, do that. It was nothing like that. And understand, for me, Merrick was kind of like a reach synagogue, if you use the college terminology. I had my safe synagogue, I had the synagogue I thought I might be able to get, and then there were the reach synagogues. And Merrick was a reach synagogue. So I was pretty unintimidated, because I felt, you know what, I'm not going to get this position, so I might as well go in. It's a learning experience.
This is a very clear memory that I have.
People in the congregation know, and they also had a way of letting me know. And those people, over the years, and it took a long time, gradually came to accept me as their rabbi. But there was significant resistance at the get-go. I think the first thing I wanted to accomplish here was for me to get to understand what the heck I had to do. Because I remember that day of June 13th, 1978. It happened to have been my birthday. It just turned 27. And I go into my study for the first time. We just moved to Merrick that day. And I was anxious to get into my study. After all, I now had to study. And I remember I still have the same desk. And Rabbi Lippman, my predecessor for many years, had the same desk. And it's a big desk. And I had nothing on the desk. And I look at this blank desk and I say, okay, so where do you begin? And no sooner does that happen, I remember it clearly. I get buzzed from the out from the intercom system, which I figured out how to operate at that moment. There was a death in someone's family. And I said to myself, okay, now you're a rabbi. I think, that was my personal hurdle. And I think the first work that had to be done was I had to give the synagogue credibility again. It had gone through some difficult transition for a year or two or three, probably 3 years, I think. There were other synagogues in the community that were attracting people as members. And Merrick Jewish Center was kind of an afterthought, I think, in a lot of people's mind back then, young people, that is, to say. And I knew I had to inject a lot of energy very, very quickly into the synagogue. I had a Hebrew school that needed a lot of creative work to be done, re-envisioning, so to speak. Our youth program needed work. Everything needed work. There wasn't a place where I could say, that I could feel that we were okay. And my not really knowing how to do something which is so overwhelming, I decided I'm going to do everything at the same time.
Both Rabbi and Betty tried very hard to wring the details about this evening from our committee. And under threat of torture, we gave a few up. But I believe we remain pretty closed-mouthed about our next segment. This surprise guest is one of the most respected and admired individuals to have graced our synagogue. A woman whose list of firsts is unmatched and who has had a relationship of mutual admiration with the Kleins since the beginning of their tenure. Although she couldn't be here in person, she sent a pretty darn slick video. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you haven't guessed it, the indomitable Helen B. Drogan.
This is a very clear memory that I have of events that took place when Rabbi Klein was applying for the job as a rabbi of Merrick Jewish Center. And by the way, it's interesting, I have forgotten the name of the previous rabbi, even though he was there for years. At any rate, he had his interview, and the next thing I knew, Jesse and I, who had served on many committees over the years, were punctilious about attending meetings. We always went. When he was going to be interviewed by the committee for whatever reason, and I can't remember now, we absolutely could not be there, so we weren't there. And the next thing I knew, the committee had been entranced by him, and they offered him a contract, and he was coming to shul the following Friday night to strut his stuff at a service. So Jesse and I went, and we were walking along the back, going to our seats, and I said in what I thought was a whisper, but I believe it wasn't, and I think some people heard me. I said to Jesse, "What are they in such a rush about? He's just a kid. Let's wait and interview all the rest of them and have him come back, and then we'll see, we'll make a decision." Well, fortunately for the Merrick Jewish Center, the committee did not take my advice, and the entire congregation was entranced, enchanted by him, and he was given a contract. And of course, that was many, many years ago, and I bless the day that they did it. We have all can't think of the word. We have all benefited from his and Betty's presence in our town and in our congregation, and we wish them now many, many years of good work, good luck, health, and happiness, and we'll all appreciate that.
That's a tough act to follow. Good evening, everybody, and to those out in TV land, as Ed Norton used to say on The Honeymoon, hello as well. Good evening again. My name is Steve Cusin. For 5 years, I had the privilege of being president of the Merrick Jewish Center, and for those 5 years, I had the honor of working side by side with Rabbi Klein. The relationship between a rabbi and a president is much like a marriage. It can be made in heaven or headed for divorce. Mine wasn't good. It was great, thanks in part to working with this guy. Sitting by side, talking several times a week, often several times a day, I got to observe him up close and personal. Simply put, the man was in perpetual motion. On the day I became president, my wife Sharon had her annual physical. Her doctor, who's from another shul, I have to stress, was reviewing her results. Everything is fine, he said. Then he turned to me and commented, "You should have your head examined for taking this job." He couldn't have been more wrong. Those were 5 incredible, extraordinary years. Of course, there were some moments we'd both like to forget, and I'm going to share some of the lowlights with you. I was told I could include a few personal moments. No laughter, please. It'll come out of my 3 minutes. There was the men's club Sabbath, which went off the rails when nothing went right. Afterwards, a guest congratulated the rabbi, he didn't know why, and said how admirable it was for allowing men from a shelter to try to run a service. Then there was the time, I said no laughter. Then there was the time Rabbi Tillis and I were attending training in Manhattan. It was running very late, and Ravid was panicking that he would not get home in time to be able to change for an evening event. He was in sweats, I was in a suit. So he got the bright idea that we should switch clothes, to which Rabbi Klein later said, and you can picture him saying this, "Yeah, that's just what we need. A picture in the Post of 2 half-naked guys in the men's room at United Synagogue." Then there was a time, this is not Don Clavin, I have to say not, when a local politician asked Rabbi Klein if he could introduce Rabbi Tillis at a fundraiser. He agreed, but was sorry he did. I don't know if you remember this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rabbi Tillman, who was trained in the cemetery. But the gold medal took place at a Friday night Gimel class service. You remember this one, because I'll never forget this one. This wins the prize. Walking in late was someone's great aunt. Picture her. Mink helmet hat, you know the type. First stole, the old-fashioned type with the claws on the arms. Strings and strings of pearls. A fabicina, operational definition. And she sat in the last row behind everyone else and didn't look happy at all to be there. We were chanting L'chad Dodi, you know that prayer. The sanctuary was full. She's in the back row. On the last line, Rabbi Klein asked all the congregants to turn around, to face the rear, to welcome Sabbath. To which she looked, as everyone turns around, "What yous all staring at?" I could go on all night. I have many other stories, but I'll stop here because I was told to talk about the topic of community. What does that word mean, community? It doesn't just happen. It has to be created. Sharing common attitudes, interests, goals, sense of identity, feelings, providing someone to count on in times of need, support, a shoulder to cry on every so often. Perhaps most important, community makes people feel welcome. Nobody, but nobody did that better than Rabbi Charles Klein. He had the magic to unite 700 families, 400 adults, countless scores of Hebrew school children, and bring them together over 3 generations. In short, he turned them into one being. This past week in his class, I was paying attention, 5 books, 5 weeks, you talked about belonging. A person has to want to belong to a community. Our community, the broader community, the larger Jewish community. Rabbi Charles A. Klein, you made all of this happen. Congratulations.
The commitment to youth and families was something I knew was just basic to my rabbinate. There were wonderful moments that we had with the kids over the years, but I remember my very first year. What I wanted to do was just reorient Hebrew school to be something that would be about the family and not just the child. So there were, all of a sudden, many, many family-centered events. And we, in those days, for probably the first 15 years, while we could, we always did retreats with the kids, Shabbat retreats with the kids. They were great. They were the most special times we had. We would take them to one of the old hotels up in the mountains, and we would spend 3 days with them there, have a beautiful Shabbos with them. Then they could go, they could go swimming, and they could go ski-mobiling on Sunday. And we just had a ball. We just had the greatest time. And then, unfortunately, one by one, the Catskill hotels died, and we no longer had any place to take the kids. And that retreat experience, which was, I think, some of the greatest moments that we had over the years, they died too. And the Catskills played a very big part in this congregation for a lot of years, not just for the kids, but the men's club used to have a weekend retreat or a weekend up in the mountains. That's where community was built. What happened by 82, 83, when we went about a very robust building campaign. I mean, that was a very, very ambitious building campaign. It already was obvious that we were on the ascent. We were riding the wave, the crest of the wave. Membership was booming every year, coming in. Hebrew school was growing explosively. The place was really run down. The Hebrew school was inadequate for the number of kids that we had coming in. Because those kids, when I came in, I don't think we had 50 kids in the whole Hebrew school. 10 years later, we had probably 300 to 400 kids. So we just keyed into that moment in time, and it was a successful campaign. It was a very successful campaign, but it was successful more, in my view, because it just was that catalyzing moment when everyone said, this is real. What's happening here is real, and we've got to use this moment to build the future of the Merritt Jewish Center and the community. The CJL Center for Jewish Life was probably one of the greatest additions that we've ever done. We've made more use of that room. It's been such an important place down through the years. You know, in olden times, which I'm going back 3 years ago, in the summer, we used to move our Shabbos morning services into the CJL because we liked the intimacy. We didn't have 200 people in the summer. We didn't have 300 people or 400 people, depending on how many bar mitzvahs we had that day. So there maybe were 100 of us, 150, and we go into the CJL, and it was just lovely. It was a beautiful, intimate place to have services. I feel so good about the CJL. I know it really has fulfilled its purpose over the years.
Shalom, everyone. I am Helena Eilenberg, the Director of Education at Merrick Jewish Center, and I am so honored to be able to be a part of this celebration of Rabbi Klein, all he has done and all he is. When I began as Education Director 13 years ago, when I was asked by friends and colleagues, what's it like working with Rabbi Klein? I always answered the same, almost kind of wondrous answer. I would say, if you had asked me how long he's been working as a rabbi, I would have said, about 7 to 10 years, because he's at the top of his game. His energy is nonstop. He shows a constant willingness to try new ideas. He's supportive of innovation, is constantly sending me new avenues of education that he has found, and is on top of everything that is happening around him, and with his finger on the pulse of the community. When problems arose, big or small, professional or personal, I have always known I could trust his instincts. Under his leadership, this community is truly amazing. And that was 13 years ago, when he had been at Merrick Jewish Center for 30 years. For the following 13 years, nothing has changed. Rabbi Klein has continued to move forward, working nonstop for the best that Merrick Jewish Center can be. And even just last week, when I was discussing 2 issues in the Hebrew school with him, the solutions he suggested were so on target, and I thought only one thing: just how much I'm going to miss him. In my long career in Jewish education, I have worked with many rabbis, have had great respect and admiration for many of them, and have enjoyed working with most. But I can say from the bottom of my heart that Rabbi Klein's wisdom, his vision, his strength, his knowledge and understanding stands above the rest. And I have been so fortunate to be part of this team that Rabbi Klein has fostered, and being able to have him as a friend. I have learned and continue to learn so much from him, and I'm so grateful to have the honor and privilege of working with him and being able to be a part of this very, very special community that he has built. So thank you, Rabbi Charles Klein. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Zara Selvin, a wonderful student in our Hebrew school whose voice is only matched by her excellence as a student, truly, and as a human being. Zara is singing Oseh Shalom.
Oseh Shalom v'imrumav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imruv himeru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael.
Good evening. I'm Charlie Skopp. I'm the ritual chairman of the Merrick Jewish Center. My wife Joanne and I have been members of Merrick Jewish Center since 1984, but I have known Rabbi Klein since I was a teenager. I first met him when he was a rabbinical student at the Jewish Theological Seminary, and he served as assistant to Rabbi Ayosha Kirschblum and youth director at the Jewish Center of Kew Gardens Hills, the synagogue where my family belonged and where I grew up in Queens. The first time Rabbi Klein and I shared a bima together was during the high holidays in 1975, when he and I led an auxiliary service in the ballroom of our shul, where Rabbi Klein officiated, and I was the Baal Shacharit. He actually wanted to be the cantor also, but I had done a lot of preparation. I persuaded him to let me sing. When it came time for me and Joanne to find a community in which to settle and to raise our family, one of the main reasons we chose Merrick was to have Rabbi Klein as our rabbi. For decades, Rabbi Klein has been a mentor to me and one of the strong positive influences in my Jewish journey. Moreover, Rabbi Klein and Betty have been role models to me, Joanne, our children, and now our grandchildren. Although a proponent of study and prayer, Rabbi Klein frequently reminds us that at times the moment demands action, sometimes dramatic action. Rabbi Klein teaches and lives the Talmudic lesson, Kol Yisrael Arevim Ze Bazeh. All the people of Israel are responsible for one another. One of Rabbi Klein's finest character traits is that he never asks us to do anything that he is not prepared to do himself. Beginning in the 1960s and through the 70s and 80s, Rabbi Klein became increasingly active in the struggle to free our Jewish brethren from Soviet oppression. In the course of this mighty struggle, Rabbi Klein learned that taking forceful action can sometimes lead one to unusual places.
I'm very much a post-Holocaust Jew, in the respect that I carry very, very deep wounds because of the Holocaust. And I remember back in '65, I was 14 years old, my rabbi took a group of us back then to a Soviet Jewry rally in the city. And from that time on, I was hooked on that idea of working for the freedom of Soviet Jewry. It was incomprehensible to me that I could sit back after the Shoah, after the Holocaust, and not do whatever I could to prevent 3 million Jews from being lost to the Jewish people. I happen to have become particularly active in it back in the late 70s, sort of coinciding with when I came here into the 80s. Rabbi Avi Weiss, who was one of my great rabbinic heroes, and called me one day and he said, "Look, I'm putting together a group of rabbis. We're going to do some pretty dramatic actions. And would you want to be a part of it?" And not thinking, because if I thought it through, I probably shouldn't have done some of the things that we wound up doing. He had come up with the idea that we should make a statement that the Soviet news agency called TASS was circulating lies, which they were, because it was all lies. So he said, we're going to break into the Soviet news agency, which was in Rockefeller Center. We're going to take it over, and we're going to stop the functioning of TASS. I don't think I told Betty what we were going to do that day. And so we meet in I remember it was on 6th Avenue, And then we posed the question to each other, how the heck are we getting into that office? Because it is locked. So Rabbi Weiss said, we're going to get in. So we go up to whatever floor it is in Rockefeller Center, knock on the door, they open the door. We then, boom, barge in and stop the functioning of TAS, put on our taluses, and we start davening. They called the police. Thankfully, they called the police and didn't shoot us. And we were taken to central booking. I'll tell, the funny story is, which I'll tell you is, so when you go to Midtown Police Precinct, the people who are in the adjacent cells are not your finest individuals. So we walk in with taluses on, and there were a few women there who were arrested for, well, you know, for merchandising, shall we say. And one of them says to the other, "Oh, Jewish guys, they have lots of money." So we spent a few hours in the jail. It made the evening news. All I know is we were getting frantic calls, or Betty was, because on the news she was hearing that Rabbi Charles Klein of the Merrick Jewish Center was arrested in Manhattan today. There were no cell phones in 1981 or 82 or whenever this happened. They released us. We found a defense attorney who said, "You're going to plead not guilty." And we said, "No, the whole point is we were guilty." He said, "You want me to defend you, or do you want to wind up in prison?" We were guilty. He says, "Plead not guilty, please plead not guilty." So we went to the court, we pled not guilty, the judge let us go. And we did that again, but another site after that. And then I've been clean the rest of my life. My record was expunged, I think, you know. But I went straight after that. Betty and I had the chance about 10 years ago, the opportunity to travel to the former Soviet Union and to spend a few days with one of my heroes, Natan Sharansky, and to travel with him through former Soviet Union and visit Jewish communities there. And, you know, just to think that we had a role in freeing that community from the brutal repression and persecution of the Soviet Union. My God, if that's all I did in life was to play a little part of that, I would say, Dayenu. I got to tell you, there were two great moments from that trip that I'll never forget. One moment was we were with Natan. There's a group of rabbis, and Betty was there and a few other spouses were there. And we were on a train going from Moscow to St. Petersburg to visit a Jewish summer camp. And so rabbis were on the train, and we had a daven. We had a daven Shachri, the morning service. So on a public train in the former Soviet Union, there are rabbis in talit and tefillin. In 1980, we would have been shot on the train for doing that, or at least wound up in the gulag. I couldn't believe it. And then we happened to have been one evening in, I think they still call it Red Square, I'm not sure, but in front of, in Red Square. And I was sadly saying Kaddish for my mom at that time. And it was evening, and I was leading the group in Mariv. And I remember saying to myself, I'm in the middle of Red Square, right here, in front of Lenin's tomb. And I'm leading a Mariv service. And that's when I came to really understand the expression Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live. Because Lenin and Trotsky and Stalin, they're gone. And there we were, a group of rabbis, and we were davening Mariv right in the heartbeat, the center of Soviet life. If you don't walk away from that experience and say, the people of Israel live forever and ever, I don't know what it's going to take to believe that.
Good evening. My name is Linda Altman. My husband Lou and I joined MJC in September 1980. So we've been members for over 41 years. I'm a proud past president of the Merrick Jewish Center. One of the best aspects of my role as president was the close working relationship that I, and I'm sure every other president, has developed with Rabbi Klein. But Alan, I'm really the most favored one. Right, Rabbi? Thanks. My family joined the congregation just 2 years after Rabbi Klein became our rabbi here. We were so fortunate to be able to learn and grow at MJC with a wonderful teacher. We joined with 2 little boys. One was just 4 and the other just over a year old. We all learned so much from our rabbi, the children and adults alike. My love of Israel developed well before my first trip there. So much of what I learned about Israel came from our rabbi. My second trip to Israel was the first trip with Rabbi Klein. Lou and I were lucky enough to travel on the 60th anniversary mission in 2008. The people that we traveled with became a family. This was not a vacation, this was a visit home. An outstanding memory of that trip was standing in Rabin Square with Betty, the rabbi, our fellow MJC travelers, singing Hatikva together with over 100,000 other people in celebration of Israel's 60 years of statehood. The people in Rabin Square became our family. That is a memory that still gives me goosebumps, and thinking about it brings tears to my eyes. A very special highlight of that trip for me was the dedication of our MJC fire pumper with Rabbi Klein. Remember that? I had the honor of unveiling the sign on the pumper that we, the congregation, purchased for the people of Sderot. We were lucky enough to participate in 2 of those extraordinary trips. When we arrived in Israel on our second trip with our rabbi and Betty, our wonderful guide Amir welcomed us all back home. Israel is an amazing place and one that I long to go back to when this COVID is over. Rabbi Klein's love of the Israeli experience and his understanding of the threats to his existence were forged back in 1973 when he and Betty were living in Israel during his time at the seminary. One place in particular captured their hearts. Please watch and listen as Rabbi Klein tells us why he is a proud Zionist.
I am a proud Zionist. And this congregation has always been a very strongly pro-Israel congregation. It was a perfect match in that respect. And I remember back in '73, it was right after the Yom Kippur War. I was in seminary in Israel for the Yom Kippur War. Betty and I just had gotten married, and we found ourselves in the middle of a war. And it was a horrific experience, just horrific. We were okay, but what we saw happening around us was shattering and life-changing in many respects. We did not feel comfortable leaving Israel after that. I remember on the Yom Kippur War, when it broke out that day, it was Yom Kippur afternoon. We had just been married 3 months. And, of course, the sirens all over the place. That night we gathered for Ne'ilah. And I remember a young man coming into Ne'ilah reserve, an Israeli reserve officer. And he was coming to say, he was dressed in his combat fatigues because they were gathering up soldiers. The buses were going all over trying to gather up reserves. He came in to say goodbye to his mother and father. I remember the name, Givaryahu. The father was a great biblical scholar. The son never came back from that war. And our neighbor in the dormitory that we were living in, married guy, Dudu, he came back, and everyone I knew was going to fight. And here I was, a student. What can I do? I mean, I was young. I got to do something. So at the end of the day, I couldn't do very much. They weren't prepared to hand me over a tank, if you could find a tank. And when we came back, I knew that Israel had to be a big part of my rabbinate, a huge part of my rabbinate. Sderot has a place in my heart. Sderot, the border city right on the Gaza Strip. Goes back to 1971, 50 years ago. Right now. So I'm a college junior, and I'm in Israel for my first semester of college in junior year. And I'm taking a sociology class, and they place us in Sderot, because Sderot is an immigrant community. And we want to study how immigrant absorption into Israel. This is 1971. And I fall in love with Sderot. It's just, the people are so real. They're so warm. They're so welcoming. And so I just developed this incredible attachment to Sderot 50 years ago. And I wasn't back for many, many, many years. And then Sderot began to become a real target for Hamas and terrorism in Gaza. And it hit me very deeply. And I came up with the idea, because what they were doing then is similar to what's still going on. There were causing a lot of, there was a lot of rockets coming in, causing a lot of fires, a lot of destruction. And they didn't have fire trucks. Don't ask me why, but they didn't have fire trucks. So I spoke to someone. I said, so what would it take to get a fire truck there? And they said, well, $100,000. And I said, I can do that. And it was pretty spontaneous. And people felt the pain of Sderot. And in a day, we had the money for that fire truck. And one of the greatest moments in my career was when we were in Israel and we saw that fire truck, and it said, donated by the Merrick Jewish Center to our friends in Sderot. That to me was just a moment of great pride. It's not, I didn't feel, that I had done it. The congregation did it.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I ask you all to please rise for the singing of Hatikva, led by the MJC singers.
Ayim Litzion Good evening. I'm Jerry Wahlberg, and I served for 47 years as the rabbi of Congregation of Shalom in Merrick, during which period of time I count as one of my major achievements the development of a deep personal and rabbinic friendship with Rabbi Charles and Betty Klein, together with my wife Mimi, who joins with me this evening. The story goes that a synagogue contacted the seminary seeking a rabbinic placement. Well, they were asked, "What kind of rabbi are you looking for?" And the committee answered by saying, "We're looking for a rabbi who's not too much to the right and not too much to the left, just mediocre." Well, if there's one word that does not speak to Charlie Klein, it's that of mediocrity. The Merrick Jewish Center has been blessed with a rabbi not too far to the right and not too far to the left, just appealing to the broadest elements of the community. I wonder how many of you were here 43 years ago when Rabbi Klein came to the Merrick Jewish Center. If you were, you know the truth of this statement. The Merrick Jewish Center was going through a period of great internal turmoil. In fact, you were the best membership committee for Oav Shalom. And then, darn it, there came Charlie Klein. The best of times came to this notable synagogue with his arrival. In fact, looking about at the plaques on the walls of the synagogue, I'm reminded most synagogues have plaques listing the names of past presidents, founders, builders. You ought to have a major plaque with the names of the search committee that brought Charlie Klein to you as your spiritual leader. Not only did you grow and benefit, but an entire community of Merrick, Orthodox, conservative, Reform, secular, what have you, Jewish and non-Jewish, was immeasurably strengthened by his presence and that of Betty in our midst. So I want to end by reminding my good friend Rabbi Klein that 11 years ago, when I retired as rabbi of Oav Shalom, he came to our synagogue at my retirement get-together and represented the clergy of the community and made a special presentation to me. He presented me with an authentic New York Jets football jacket that was inscribed on the front with the number 47 for the years of my service, and on the back in large letters with the word Wahlberg. You know, like Joe Namath. I was very proud as a lifelong Nebuch Jet fan. And the following December, when I went to visit our daughter, son-in-law, and their family in Florida, it happened that the Jets were playing Miami in Miami. I took my life in my hands bravely and proudly walked with Kleins' gift. The game ended as most Jet games end. My grandson was with me. He was 10 years old at the time. This is 11 years ago. I'm walking in the parking lot. A native New Yorker comes over to me and says, "Who the blank blank is 47 Wahlberg?" I say to him, "Oh, it's just some old timer who was on the practice squad. He never made it." He looks at me, holding my grandson by the arm, and says, "I've been to every blank blank Jet game since Shea Stadium opened. And I tell you, that 47 Wahlberg must have been some piece of blank blank." At which my grandson begins crying. "You cursed my grandpa!" And I said to him, "Boaz, an important life's lesson. Some days you're a big hero. To some people, you really amount to something. But unfortunately, in life, sometimes you're just a blank blank." Well, Rabbi Klein, I don't have any such gift to present you. But one final thought. Our rabbis tell us the Jewish people were blessed with two leaders, Moses and Aaron. Moses represented the prophet. Lo kam b'Yisrael kamo she'od navi umabites temunato. Aaron represented the priest. We call them Kohanim. He started the dynasty of the Kahuna. Why did we need two leaders? Because, explain our sages, each one brought a special, unique trait. And we need both such traits in our religious leadership. Moses, the prophet, was harsh, condemnatory, made people toe the line and told them the truth. Aaron the Cohen was soft, understanding, forgiving. They're just human. They're weak. Your rabbi, my friend and role model as a rabbi, lahavdil, has the qualities both of the Moses and of the Aaron. We have been blessed by God to have him serve the Jewish people. I know his journey to the rabbinate was one that was led by HaKadosh Baruch Hu from Brandeis University to the seminary. Charlie, may God be with you, and Betty, ad mea ve'esrim shana, till the proverbial 120, as we now witness you in action from this pulpit, a rabbi's rabbi, as a preacher, as a teacher, and blessed with Betty at your side. Mazel tov.
Everyone knows that I've been cantorially challenged over the years. It's no secret. It's no secret. We once had an applicant for the cantorial position who wrote this note to the search committee. This person said, you know, I'd like to come to the Marriage Jewish Center, be your cantor. And he said, and I think I can sing well with Rabbi Klein. I had a colleague in this community, for many, many years, Rabbi Wahlberg, Jeremiah Wahlberg, who's a dear friend, dear friend to me. We're very, very close. And, you know, we always would talk sermons, he and I. And he was a master. He still is. He still is. But in his day of preaching, he was a master. And we would talk about sermons, and he would always tell me about his jokes. If you look at my early sermons, I didn't have humor in them. It's only when we became close that I began to say, you know, maybe humor works as your opening. And I tried it once, it worked, so I tried it the next year. I went and then all of a sudden, it became a lifetime burden. Find the joke, or find the jokes that everyone is going to laugh over. And I enjoy it because, first of all, believe it or not, when I get up to my lectern on Rosh Hashanah first day, or second day, or Kol Nidre, or Yom Kippur, not so much on Shabbos, but when I get up there and there are all these people out there, and I'm nervous. I still get nervous about preaching on the high holidays. I have right now, what does Simone Biles call it? The twisties. I got 8 or 9 different moves that I can go at this point. I'm trying to really focus it in now on 3 or 4, develop those 3 or 4 ideas. So I got the twisties. I'm not sure how to turn, how to come down right moment. And that ends. That ends never. Because I get up to there, and that little joke really gets me to that moment of, okay, all right, I get to that peaceful moment again. I get back to my equilibrium. When the Haftorah is being chanted on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and I know I'm going to go right after that, I'm still looking at my notes, fumbling through notes. I take my arrows there, and I'm cross that out. This is to the last moment. So the joke comes, and it kind of puts me at ease, and I'm ready to go. Betty plays a very big role in sermon development. Even this year, we were talking about on Shabbos because I wasn't sure about a certain idea, and I said, what do you think about that? And she, and she knows, Betty knows, in terms of the Shabbos sermons, she doesn't really get too involved in that. But high holidays, she's very, very involved. And she knows not to ask me in the summer, how are my sermons going? It's like, it's the wrong question to ask. You don't ask me how my sermons are going. There's a lot of ideas that I kind of look for her response, and she's done that before. And when it's over, when I give the sermon, the first person I look to is Betty. How'd it go? I still do that. And when we had a regular Rosh Hashanah service, she would sit off to my right, and I finish the sermon, look off to the right, and how'd it go? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Mostly, thankfully, thumbs up.
Just a moment to acknowledge two of our more a little late arrivals, Charlie's brother Eric and Councilman Bruce Blakeman has arrived. Cantor Benny Broshovsky is the last in a long line of cantors who served on this beamer alongside Rabbi Klein. That's all I'm going to say about cantors. I promise. In my personal opinion, he ranks pretty near the top, if not the top, in his chazanut. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here tonight in person due to a previous commitment, but he couldn't let the night pass by without finding a way to join us. So he's got a little song that he's going to do, and he's going to ask some of you to join in, and the words to this song are on your program. But he also poses an answer to that 43-year-old question, and as the rabbi himself mentioned in the last video, is Charlie Klein cantorially challenged? Let's find out.
Hello, Rabbi. Hello, Betty. Greetings to you all tonight. Rabbi, that story was really funny, and I appreciate you sharing it. But if, in fact, you are cantorially challenged, that is not the reason. I want to be clear, not the reason why I couldn't be with you tonight. Unfortunately, I had a previous commitment to perform in Washington, D.C. when tonight's event was announced. I really would like to be with you this evening to celebrate, but in my absence, I want to offer this piyut, this liturgical poem, in your honor, Rabbi Klein, in your honor, Betty, and more importantly, for your enjoyment. And I invite you all there this evening to sing along with me. Rabbi Klein, I hope that these last 2 years of your career with me as your cantor have proven that you are actually not cantorially challenged. Maybe the cantors have been, perhaps, rabbinically challenged? Because you and I have made some beautiful music together. So, Rabbi Klein, if you feel the urge and the Spirit moves you, you are welcome to join me up here and help lead our congregation together in joyous song tonight as we ask the question, Mihu zeh ve'ezeh hu? Mazel tov, Rabbi, Mazel tov, Betty, Mazel tov. Oy, ha'aderes ve'ha'emunah tzuvemmen, tzuvemmen, lechai, oy, nomin, oy, ha'bino ve'ha'bracha, tzuvemmen, tzuvemmen, lechai, oy, lo, oy, ha'gavo ve'ha'gedula, tzuvemmen, tzuvemmen, lechai,
pitch, huh? We lost him. We lost Benny. We lost Benny. We lost him. It was supposed to be longer than that. I can speak longer now. Oh.
Rabbi, the Strimel's a good look for you. I don't know about wearing it in South Florida, but definitely not. Shalom, everybody. Rabbi Jack Dermer. I was the assistant rabbi here at the Merrick Jewish Center. Working alongside Rabbi Klein for 3 wonderful years. The next segment that we're about to see is called Sharing Wisdom. And so we're going to take a few moments now before we watch to just reflect on Rabbi Klein's scholarship, on the depth of his learning, on his commitment to always learn every single day. We think about the pages of Talmud that he's poured over at 5 a.m., at 6 a.m. when he's up and he can't go back to sleep. We think about the books that he's devoured over the years, the newspaper articles that he's clipped and magazine articles that he's clipped that have found their way into sermons and come from his heart and then entered into all of ours through these years. Countless words once spoken, words from this bima, words of a eulogy, words of a bar bat mitzvah charge, words underneath the chuppah, words in private meetings and phone calls with Rabbi Klein, words of a lifetime of wisdom shared. We all know about Rabbi Klein's wonderful collection of high holiday sermons, words once spoken. I refer to it all the time. I love it. Thank you for that. But his other book as well, How to Forgive When You Can't Forget. We're going to finally, for the first time, I think, get the inside scoop tonight about how the wisdom offered in that book came to be and how that wisdom was then shared with Jews across the country. It was shared on the Oprah Winfrey Show, how it touched so many and continues to. And I just want to add, as I was thinking really all week about introducing this segment and what am I going to say? Wisdom shared. I mean, come on. But I kept coming back to one thought again and again, that as I reflected on my relationship with Rabbi Klein and just watching him through the years, it wasn't the words once spoken, it wasn't the words once written, it was the actions always taken. Because for all the words that you've offered us over the years from this bima, Rabbi Klein, for all your skill in communicating with force and with power and with passion and with humor, we know what makes you a man of wisdom. It's not just the words. The words are the easy part. It's the showing up day in and day out and being there in all the ways that you have been for everyone in this room and everyone watching along for so many years, the expression of wisdom embodied. And so as we go into this next segment, we are, as we are all evening, celebrating Rabbi Klein, our rabbi, my mentor, thinking back on a lifetime of wisdom, of study, of devoted study, yeah, a lifetime of preaching too, certainly. But more than that, more than all those words, a lifetime of actions taken, of being there for all of us and showing us what wisdom looks like when it's lived each and every day. Sharing wisdom.
I wrote How to Forgive When You Can't Forget for a few reasons. But first, for the sake of transparency, I should say to everyone that that wasn't the title I selected. I don't remember my proposed title for it. But all I know is I sent this to my publisher, excuse me, and my publisher happened to have been, or happens to be still, the brother-in-law of Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld read the book, as a matter of fact, he's on the dust cover, and said, here's what the title should be, How to Forgive When You Can't Forget. My publisher calls me back and said, Jerry Seinfeld thinks that the title should be How to Forgive When You Can't Forget. And I said, but I don't want to write a how-to book. And my publisher said, well, let me see. Probably the cultural icon of America at the moment suggests that it be How to Forgive When You Can't Forget. You suggest this. Who do you think we should endorse at this moment? So that's how it became How to Forgive When You Can't Forget. Why did I write the book? I wrote it because I had noticed. I had given a few sermons back in the 80s on the issue of forgiveness, which is one of the go-to topics of the High Holy Days, as we all know. And I could tell that of all the sermons I was giving on the High Holidays, any time I sermonized about forgiveness, the response was really off the charts. But forgiveness as a topic became kind of a Christian topic. And I really felt that, we gave the world, the Jewish people gave the world the idea of forgiveness. We should make some claim to it because it's intrinsic to the Jewish experience. I got a call to go on the Oprah show, and again, I've never been the kind of person, who gets overwhelmed by things. And I said, oh, I'm going to do Oprah. That's fine. That's good. That's great. I'm going to Chicago. Here we go. And that day, we're flying out to Chicago, and whether it's psychosomatic or not, I feel terrible. I got a cold. I don't know. And Betty is flying out with me, and I'm sitting next to this guy, and this guy says, you sound awful. And I said, yeah, and I got to do the Oprah show. He says, you got to take something. You're going to be terrible on national television. So I said, I have nothing to take. He says, here, take this. So I took it. Betty then looks at me, as she has down through the years, and said, what were you doing? A guy offers you a pill, you just take it? So anyway, I took it, I was fine. I'm sitting in the green room and beginning to get a little bit nervous. Primarily because here I'm going to go on national television, and I haven't even met Oprah Winfrey. I don't know what she's going to do with me. I have no idea how this hour is going to go at all. And I'm saying, she's going to come in, we're going to talk, she's going to say, okay, Rabbi, I'm going to do this, and you're going to do this, and blah, blah, So, I feel once I have that conversation, I'll have my marching orders, I'll get the sense of how I'm in the green room, and then I hear, and we're bringing out Rabbi Charles Klein of the Merrick Jewish Center next to discuss his book, How to Forgive When You Can't Forget. And I remember looking around and saying, uh-oh. So I come out on stage, and I'm with Oprah Winfrey, and I don't know what's going to be. And I'm saying to myself, if you have ever been nimble on your feet, you better do it now, buddy, because this is the real thing. About a month or so later, it was going to be viewed nationally. And I was a wreck. Just like I don't know what's going to happen with this video we're making, I didn't know what to expect. And I remember in the old days when you had an answering machine in the house, I remember this message I left. Hi, you've reached Charles Klein, and I am in a fetal position right now. If the Oprah show goes well, I will emerge from my fetal position. If it doesn't, I probably will never call you back. And so it went reasonably well. I mean, I could probably do a much better job at it right now. I wish she would take a show back and bring me out again.
Good evening. My name is Brian Oken. I'm a past president of the congregation, a member for over 20 years, and my wife Allison's family have been members for over 50 years. I can't think of a better way to introduce Rabbi Klein speaking about leadership than to cite Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks. Rabbi Sacks identified several principles of leadership in a Jewish way. Leadership according to Judaic principles and values. One of those, as Rabbi Sacks said, is leadership means believing in the people you lead. Judaism prefers the leadership of influence to the leadership of power. Power lifts the leader above the people. One of Judaism's greatest insights into leadership, the highest form of leadership, is teaching. Power begets followers. Teaching creates leaders. I can't think of a better way of highlighting how this principle applies to Rabbi Klein than sharing my own experience. While I have always been an active member of the MJC community, it wasn't until becoming president that I felt firsthand how Rabbi Klein impacted the growth of our leaders. I had only been just elected the previous year to the 4th vice presidency. This was my first experience on the executive committee. While I had taken the role with the thought that I would one day become president, I didn't expect it to occur so soon. After discussing the role with the nominating committee, I called Rabbi Klein. I knew I could never be successful without his guidance, support, and encouragement. During my 2 terms as president, Rabbi Klein was instrumental in my growth in the role, especially his ability to help me overcome my weaknesses and excel in my strengths. However, it's not just my experience or the experience of other leaders of our congregation that have benefited from Rabbi Klein. His leadership skills have catapulted him into a leading voice of conservative Judaism. Another principle Rabbi Sacks identified was, leadership is about the future. It is vision-driven. Before you can lead, you must have a vision of the future and be able to communicate it to others. Rabbi Klein has not only been our local leader, he has also had a vision for the synagogue and the broader Jewish community as well. Rabbi Klein turned that vision into reality. Being recognized by his peers with awards was just a small step in having his vision manifested. Most importantly was his installation as the president of the New York Board of Rabbis. This was far from just a figurehead position. It was an opportunity for the rabbi and the Merrick Jewish Center to take a leading role as representatives of the Jewish community to the region and, remarkably, to the world, as you're about to hear.
You know, when you're president of the New York Board of Rabbis, you get some interesting meetings. The one meeting that I remember the most is the meeting that we had that year with the Secretary General of the UN. Maybe it was my second year of the presidency, I forget. I forget his name, South Korean gentleman. And that was the year that the UN was allowing Ahmadinejad, the president of Iran, to speak at the UN. Well, anyway, Ban Ki-moon, I think was his name. his people allowed us to have a meeting right about that time. So I was president, and therefore I had the floor. And I was sitting right across from him at a big conference table. And some of my New York chutzpah came out because I was incensed. I was outraged. To me, it was a distortion of everything the United Nations is supposed to be about, allowing a delusional mass murderer, as he desired it in his mind, to speak to the UN. I felt was really a capitulation to evil. So I said, and I'm not exaggerating one bit here now. I looked him in the eye. We were 4 or 5 feet away from each other across the table. And I said to him, how is it, Mr. Secretary General, that you are not personally embarrassed and humiliated that as Secretary General of the United Nations, you are permitting this man to speak to the world? He didn't answer. He didn't answer. But I had the opportunity, and I wasn't going to lose it. I wasn't going to miss it. Because to me, there are certain times you just gotta speak truth to power. You gotta speak truth to power. And being president of the Board of Rabbis allowed me the opportunity to really get to know incredible people. I remember Cardinal Dolan came to town while I was president. And we had a kiddush for him in honor of him becoming the cardinal, New York Board of Rabbis, because we have a great relationship with the Archdiocese. Anyway, so we make this kiddush, the Board of Rabbis makes this kiddush for him, and he's there, and Betty's with me, and I said, Betty, I want to introduce you to the cardinal. So she said to me, she asked me, is he alive? Can you shake his hand? Can you shake his hand? And I said, I do, but I'm not sure. I said, Cardinal, or Your Eminence. I said, Betty's here, my wife Betty, and she doesn't know if she can shake your hand to wish you well. And he's a big bear of a guy. I mean, big bear of a guy. He goes over, puts his arms around her. Betty, just say Mazel Tov. And they were just wonderful experiences like that. Back in 2001, I was awarded the Finkel Prize. They called it, Rabbi of the Year, and I was thrilled with it. I was very thrilled with it. You're always thrilled, I think most of all, when colleagues say, you've done something that we've really noticed. And so that was a high point in my career. But what was best about it was that my parents got a chance to be a part of it. And, my parents were very, very proud that I became a rabbi. I mean, they had a doctor and a dentist, and then my kid brother, who does whatever he does, but he's terrific at it. And but they had a rabbi. And my mother always used to say to people, when she was unfortunately in the assisted living facility, I'm going to tell my son the rabbi about this. So anyway, that was the best part of it. It was that they had that nachas. And I remember my mom just beaming. She was so proud.
Keep playing Simon and Garfunkel. You know, Rabbi, the Finkel ceremony happened to be exactly 20 years ago today, October 24th. Yeah, October 24th. In any event, I'm sure most of you remember Rabbi Ravi Tillis, who was assistant rabbi here before Rabbi Derma. And one of my favorite memories of Rabbi Tillis was when we called a special congregational meeting in order to vote to hire him as assistant rabbi. Rabbi Klein spoke on his behalf, of course, and then Rabbi Tillis made his pitch. And when he finished, he simply held up a sign that said, "Vote for me!" The entire sanctuary erupted in laughter. It's my pleasure to bring to you, direct from Boston, hopefully he hasn't switched his allegiance from the Orioles to the Red Sox, but here he is, Rabbi Ravi Tillis.
To my dear friend, mentor, and colleague, Rabbi Charles Klein. I remember one of the first times that I was giving a Devar Torah at the Merrick Jewish Center. I was up on the bima, I stood up at the stender, I gave my talk, and I had decided that morning that I was going to try something new, something innovative, a different way of delivering a Devar Torah. And I remember everybody in the congregation nodding along, and I was feeling great. And I went to sit down, and right before I could sit down, Rabbi Klein gave me a big hug, and he whispered in my ear with a laugh, but my apologies, he whispered in my ear, "What the hell was that?" And we both laughed together at that moment. But then later, he and I were reflecting, and he said something to me at that moment that I remember now, and I will remember for the rest of my career. He said that at every given moment as rabbis, we have potential to change people's lives. Whether it's a really big moment on high holidays in front of thousands of people, or if it's just talking to one person as they sit with dread in a hospital bed, and anywhere in between, this moment included. We have the potential to say something really, really important and meaningful, and we can't just let it go. So yeah, he and I would laugh a lot on the bima, and I can't think of very many great stories, but we would just have looks with each other and we would just burst out laughing because we were that kind of relationship. But more importantly, he helped me understand the seriousness and the weight of this role that he and I are very blessed to be in as rabbis, as leaders of the Jewish community. And the truth is, Rabbi Klein takes everything seriously. Even though he laughs a lot and he has a great sense of humor, he knows how holy the work is that he gets to do and has had the pleasure and honor of doing for the last number of decades. So Rabbi Klein, I hope that you get to laugh a lot as you go into retirement, but also can look back with great satisfaction knowing that you made many, many important moments for thousands of people, countless children, and you've really made an incredible impact in the Merrick Jewish Center, the global Jewish community, and really the entire world. Mazel tov, my friend. Sorry I can't be there with you in person. I'm sure you understand. Mwah.
A moment to catch my breath. As difficult as it is to speak in front of my rabbi, walking to the beamer, I noticed that Councilman Bruce Blakeman is sitting in the audience. He also happens to be my supervisor at the town of Hempstead. So if this shows up in my evaluation, Barry Wilansky, past officer of the congregation, but most importantly, for 36 years, my wife Judith and my children were members of this community that Rabbi Klein created. There was the Challenger and Katrina and Sandy, and there was Rabbi Klein. There were huddled masses in Ethiopia, people of conscience in Russia, and there was Rabbi Klein. There was a synagogue in Pittsburgh, another in California, and there was Rabbi Klein. There was a financial crisis in America, and so much more. And there was Rabbi Klein. Rabbi Klein was never a man to remain still in the face of wholehearted splinteredness of the human predicament. He organized, he found words to explain, words with which to teach us. He reached out with comfort and healing. Oh, gather up your brokenness, bring it to me now, sang the words of Leonard Cohen, favorite poet and singer of Rabbi Kleins, perhaps the model for Leonard Cohen's words. How to forgive when you can't forget, misfortune and turmoil of all of our too fragmented lives. Troubled dust that gathers in the corner of our lives. And there is Rabbi Klein, bringing wisdom, bringing healing to a community's pain. But he's too humble to speak about this, of what I believe to be the divine nature of this man, the essence of his healing ways. I think my voice, and of all of us in the sanctuary and on the Zoom, all of us who during these 43 years of this rabbinate encountered the power of this healing. Rabbi Klein entered the black hole of grief and mourning. He prayed with and sang with the dying. He walked with them right up to the gates, knowing when that gate closed, the gates of weeping will open, and he'll remain there for those who are embrace them all. He sat day after day with our trauma, absorbing the pain. He sat with the sick, with those suffering from broken relationships, those desperately in need of repair. And we were comforted healed by words once spoken. Join me in awe of this thought for a moment. Over the decades, there are thousands of us, who have been lifted from the depths of sorrow and despair and all manner of grief. We have sat in the sanctuary, guests and congregants alike. We listened as he taught through sermons, as he spoke at funerals, at Yiska. Thousands of us. We sat in his study, we spoke with him on our phones, he came to our homes, and we were brought to healing. And the numbers so touched will continue to grow as we share his words now with his wisdom now that are spoken by us. For me, this defines Rabbi Klein's rabbinate and places him among the miraculous. It also brings into full focus his great sacrifice and those of Betty and Naomi and Avram and Josh and Barry. But yes, most of all, to Rabbi himself. He knew of the pain of this sacrifice. He taught us of the sacredness of family life and how it hurt him. The countless times he momentarily had to let go of Betty and the children to heed the call of a congregant. And how extraordinary, Betty and Josh and Barry and Avram and Naomi, how extraordinary to have comforted your father with a smile, with your love, how you soothed your father when he returned to your home, back from his encounters with suffering. I hope each of you now realize and take pride in how you sustained him through those years and supported this rabbinate of healing. Our rabbi, your father, planted words of healing in our open wounds.
Well, I think everyone remembers 9/11. I certainly do, very powerfully. I remember after the buildings came down, I was in my study, and I know that everybody was just devastated. I know I was. And I started reaching out to some colleagues in the community, and I said, we need to We need to bring people together for this. There's a great, great need. We hastily organized a community gathering here. All the synagogues. And we didn't really have internet back then. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how we got it done in a few hours without internet. But we did, and there were telephones, I guess, telephones, and we had a massive crowd here. And I think everybody in this community, as hurt as we were, as devastated as we were, as frightened as we were, because I don't think anyone felt on the evening of 9/11 that this was the end of it. I think all of us believed that this was only the beginning, that there were going to be aftershocks, and who knows how severe those aftershocks would be. But people felt such a comfort in being together, in having that evening as a community. One of the things we did, I was very involved in the Board of Rabbis back then, New York Board of Rabbis. And because of, or with the help, I should say, of my dear friend, Rabbi Joe Potasnik, who's been a very, very dear friend to me for so many years. And he is the fire department chaplain. So we were able to gain access, not full access to ground zero for Hanukkah. And we had a menorah set up. And I was able to bring 30 or 40 people to light the menorah adjacent to ground zero. And it was ground zero at that time, 2 months later, was still a total devastation. But we were able to light the menorah and to have that moment of light in that darkness of ground zero. And if ever Hanukkah was made for a moment, it was that moment. And thankfully we shared it. I don't know if many people know this about me, but when I was in the seminary, I wasn't really sure I was going to become a pulpit rabbi. Back then, the seminary began a joint program with Columbia in social work to create rabbis who would become leaders of large Jewish communal agencies like UJ Federation, whatever it may be. So when the Great Recession, or whatever we called it back, financial crisis of 2008 happened, and I saw what the level of hurt was here, I said, this is my opportunity to do what I always wanted to do for the last 20 years. I want to make a statement that the synagogue can answer the social service needs of a community. So what did we do back then? It was so pace-setting, it's ridiculous. With the model we created, everyone was calling us. How did you do it? And I'm talking about big Jewish organizations. It was written up in major newspapers, what we were doing back then. So we knew there were a lot of people out of work. So what we did, we started a job network here where there was help with resume writing. We did that. And we had a network. So if someone in the community had a job in their business or knew of a job, we had a placement service going. We had counseling being given to people who were unemployed. We had counseling being given to people who were facing real uncertainties and anxieties. When you think about it, in the last 20 years, what we've gone through, it's pretty incredible. 9/11, the financial crisis, Sandy, which really hurt us deeply, and now COVID. So I knew we had a lot of spiritual needs to respond to. for all the reasons. The loneliness that people were feeling, the fears, the anxieties, the lack of community, all this stuff which is unique to the COVID experience. I'm no lover of Zoom, but it helped. I'm no lover of live stream, but it helped. But I think what helped the most is when our Chesed committee broke down the congregation into units and said, we're going to reach out to everybody, because we worked this out. We said, you've got to spearhead our outreach to everyone. And you got to let us know who we have to tend to more than others. You got to let us know who needs food. You got to let us know who needs to get, who needs help. You got to help us know, and they got to know that we care, and they got to know that they're not alone, and they got to know that somehow the synagogue community is going to be there as a support. It has made for all of us a terribly, terribly difficult and fearful time. And for me as a rabbi, it really has taken from me a lot of what I wanted this last year and a half, 2 years to be about. I haven't had the personal contact with people that I wanted to have. I haven't been able to teach in person like I would like to teach. I haven't been able to go to a hospital to visit people who are sick. That's really hard. Do you know how hard it was for me to know that someone was dying, someone had COVID, and I couldn't visit them? I mean, the families, of course, for them it was catastrophic. But my rabbinate has been, be where people need you. And I haven't been able to. Phone's okay. But you can't hug anybody, you can't shake anybody's hand, you can't do any of this stuff, you can't do everything which is a part of the spiritual relationship with people.
You just call up my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. Oh, yes, I will see you again.
Good evening. For those who do not know me, I am Howie Siegel, and my family and I have been members of the Merrick Jewish Center for 23 years. What a night this has been so far. There have been momentous occasions in the history of the Merrick Jewish Center, and tonight's event will certainly be added to that list. It is truly an honor and a privilege for me to be standing up here tonight as we pay tribute to both Betty and Rabbi Klein for an amazing 43 years of their leadership, love, and devotion to our synagogue. How fortunate have we all been to have them in our lives for that period of time. I have been extremely fortunate to have been elected as an officer of this congregation for 18 consecutive years, 2 of which were as the 50th person to serve as president of the congregation from July 2018 to June 2020. As an officer, I have been sitting on this bima with Rabbi Klein for all of those years. As I mentioned at his 40th year celebration, there are many great seats available in our city. 50-yard line seats at MetLife Stadium, courtside seats at Madison Square Garden, orchestra seats at Lincoln Center. But I would not trade my seat on the MJC Beamer for any of those. What a rewarding experience it has been. We have had a great time chatting, joking, and strategizing, and we have even done a little davening and singing once in a while. During the years that I have worked together and closely with Rabbi Klein, we both have always had a common goal. How do we make the Merrick Jewish Center the best, the premier the most vibrant synagogue out there. There is no doubt that the Merrick Jewish Center has been and is what it is because Rabbi Klein has been our leader. Through his incredible work ethic, dedication, and commitment, the Merrick Jewish Center has become the go-to synagogue on the South Shore of Long Island, and maybe even the entirety of Long Island. During this next chapter of the video presentation, you will hear Rabbi Klein talk about his hopes for the future of the Merrick Jewish Center. He is well aware that upon his retirement, there will be a transition period, but his hope is for us to become even stronger and more vibrant than we ever have been. He has mentioned to me many times that being the rabbi of the MJC has been his life's work. Hours upon hours, days upon days, years upon years of blood, sweat, and tears to serve this congregation and the needs of each and every congregant. As you will hear, his wish is that the Merrick Jewish Center continues to thrive and be alive for eternity, with him just being part of its amazing story and its history. That is a calling to all of us. Let's not let him down. Of course, we will miss his presence, his dynamism, and leadership, both on and off the bema. That goes without saying. We will miss his distinctive voice echoing off the walls of this sanctuary, whether delivering one of his powerful and inspiring sermons or singing along or above the cantor. And by all accounts, he admittedly will miss all of this too. But this is not the end of the story. He has set us on a path to even greater achievements and has high hopes for our future. So, to Morenu Harav Aaron Koppel ben Mordechai, our teacher, our rabbi, Charles Klein, and your beautiful wife, Betty, I wish you both behatzlacha, success, during your retirement and the remainder of your life. I will surely miss you as my rabbi, but we will without a doubt be lifelong friends. If you haven't used a tissue or a handkerchief yet tonight, I urge you to get one ready for this next segment.
My hope for the future of the Merrick Jewish Center is that I really do hope, I really do pray, number one, that we find the rabbinic leadership for the future. And by we, I mean, I'm not going to be, I told everybody, I don't want to have a role in selecting this next person. It's not my place. It's not my place. This has got to be the congregational voice. But I hope that we are successful, because I am telling you from the bottom of my heart, nothing would make me happier, nothing, than to see a rabbi succeed me who will take this congregation, love it, care for it, lead it, take it to the next chapter. If the next rabbi ever listens to this, I want that next rabbi to know that it has to be the way you and the congregation feel this congregation must go. I just want it to happen. I want to be able to come back here and feel energy. I want to be able to come back here and say, yeah, this place, it's alive again. That's what I want. That'll make me feel great. That'll make me feel terrific. There's a lot I'll miss about this. I think about it all the time now because everything is the last this and the last that, you know? And I don't talk about it too much because I don't want to sound like, you know, I'm being too dramatic about it. but it is a lot of last stuff for me. And, every week that I put together a sermon, I say to myself, what's the last time I'm going to preach on this? And I'm still thinking, my mind is so crazy that I'm still thinking about what I'm going to preach for next Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, So I'm going to miss a lot of stuff. I'm going to miss a lot, I'm going to miss, I'll miss being here. I mean, I'll be here, but I won't be here. I won't be here, at that place. I'll miss playing that role in people's lives, having that role in people's lives, which really became always more and more a bigger part of my rabbinate. I'll miss being able to, walk into this place and feel that, it's mine. Probably, I'll miss that. I'll miss some of the perks of being a rabbi. There are several times in the year when the Torah is read, and the rabbi gets that an aliyah for several special occasions that only the rabbi gets. And I said to myself, gee, I'm never going to get that again. I'm never going to get that honor again. I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss playing a part in the unfolding of the I will miss probably not being excuse me. There's my mask. I guess that was bound to happen. I'll miss not playing my role in the unfolding of the Jewish story. Because ultimately, that's what I wanted to do.
Hi, I'm Ken Widover. I was president of the Merrick Jewish Center from 1988 to 1989. Although Eric and I have been, and our family have been members here since 1974. As we were just telling Rabbi Wahlberg, had it not been for Charlie and Betty, we would have been members of OHAV. We were interviewing at the time. I want to thank the committee for putting me up here to have to speak after that, because I'm having trouble controlling myself. So I want to say two things. Presidents that have been up here have said that they had the best relationship with Rabbi Klein. I consider him my best friend. He's still my rabbi. But I think he had the best relationship with the president who's not here, and that's Steve Goldschein. And Rabbi Wahlberg, I've chaired a number of rabbi search committees, and every time I spoke to Elliot, who was the gatekeeper at the seminary, and told him what we were looking for, and I would say, just send us Rabbi Klein, he would hang up the phone.
So it's my honor to be able to present Rabbi Klein with something. I'd like all the past presidents that are here, I'll call you by name, to come up and stand with me. Linda Altman, Saul Rosenberg, George Feld, Howie Siegel, Steve Cusin, Howie Teagle, who's current president, Alan Sussman, Steve Cusin, Brian Oken, and Barry Silverman. Rabbi, would you come up also? So, as I said, it's my honor to present you with this plaque, but more importantly, what it conveys. And I'll read it. The Merrick Jewish Center Congregation or Torah is honored to bestow the title of Rabbi Emeritus on our beloved Rabbi and teacher, upon the occasion of his retirement, Rabbi Charles A. Klein. His exceptional wisdom and dedication to our congregation for 43 years has been a blessing for all of us. Okay?
Betty, it's your turn. I mentioned earlier, when I told Rabbi Klein we were going to have an event in his and Betty's honor, he'd asked for only a bagel. Thank you, Howard. He'd asked for only a bagel. Well, when Betty found out about the event, she said, "You can't turn it into a roast." Well, Betty, the 40 years of roast material that I've been saving up is now in the dumpster. Betty has always expressed reticence about coming up to the bima and about being in the spotlight, but there's no one here who deserves it more. Many years ago, at another event commemorating a special moment for Betty and Rabbi, Betty spoke about the difficulties of their children growing up as preacher's kids, PKs, with their father being on call around the clock. Rabbi alluded to it as well in the first tape segment. Well, if it was difficult for the kids, imagine what it was like for the PW, the preacher's wife. As we all know, she has spent the last 43 years sharing her husband with us, and we also know that we got the lion's share. Nevertheless, she has managed, particularly in the years since her children have become adults, to forge her own distinct identity, whether as a sermon editor, a trip coordinator, an event planner, or a host to countless guests and Shabbat dinners at their home. Most importantly, she's brought to our congregation her own unique blend of kindness, compassion, sensitivity, and empathy. Her strength and support have enabled our husband to do extraordinary things, and I don't know where we, or more importantly, he would be without it. Howard Teagle compares the rabbi's work ethic as flying at 500 miles per hour and 35,000 feet. And guess who the co-pilot was? Well, it's now time for that plane to start descending. And we pray that the two of you, along with your entire family, will be able to spend the precious time together that you so richly deserve. So it's my honor now to introduce Betty and have her come and speak to you. And it's my privilege to call her my friend. Betty.
How much can I get for all this? This is very difficult. It really is my privilege tonight to offer a toast to the Merrick Jewish Center and to all those who made it what it is today. First, I personally want to thank the committee who worked so very hard to make this evening what it is, considering the constraints of the pandemic. You're all amazing, and I know that firsthand because each and every one of you is a dear friend to me. And that's very personal. It's very, very difficult for me to focus on the fact that this is an evening of reflection, memories, gratitude, and official farewells as Charlie prepares to retire. As was said before, on June 13th, 1978, we came to Merrick, we arrived here, and it was Charlie's 27th birthday. Josh was almost 3. Barry was a few months old. Well, that was the day that our story began. It was exciting, it was scary, and it was truly an overwhelming time. We never imagined then that we would be here 43 years later. In the blink of an eye, we traveled through time from 1978 to 2021. But as the journey began to unfold, Charlie's vision of what the Merrick Jewish Center could be began to take shape. And that very young rabbi with boundless energy, incredible positivity, unwavering devotion, and unbelievable determination set to work. I knew then that Merrick was home. Shortly after we settled in, I attended a rabbi's wives support group. Yeah, I needed support. After all, this was new territory for me. Now remember, and I think you all did, that the rabbis were men and the spouses were women. What an eye-opener. The stories, the complaints, the venting. It was dizzying. I remember coming home and thinking to myself, what have I gotten myself into now? But it didn't take me long to realize that their experiences were different than my experience. Of course, there were ups and downs, and I did go through challenging and difficult periods, but the overall culture of the Merrick Jewish Center, it was different. We had a unified goal, we had positivity, we had forward-thinking, devoted leadership, we had dedicated clergy, very, very dedicated clergy that you all are hearing about this evening, but you knew that and you know that deep in your hearts. And we had committed members who always, always stepped up when there was need. Together with maybe just a little drama along the way, we forged forward. Yes, it takes a village to build and sustain a synagogue. And what a synagogue we have built, you have built. We have shared so much over the years. We have laughed and we have cried together, and we have been there to support and to celebrate with each other. We have traveled and we've built amazing relationships. And sadly, we have faced some unimaginable times together. Well, to my husband, I love you. What a gift it has been to be your partner on this journey. You really have been an acrobat, always trying to maintain that balance, to be there for us, your family, and for our Merrick Jewish Center family. You are the star here tonight, and I know, because I was home with you today, how emotionally difficult this evening is for you. You earned it. Sit back and just continue to enjoy it. To my children, Josh, Barry, Naomi, and Avram, I love you so much. I know growing up as the children of a rabbi often made things a bit complicated, to say the least, and I know at times it wasn't easy. In spite of it all, you guys are amazing. You turned out great, and I am so, so proud of you. And finally, get to the toast. Just a little. This is a toast to all of us who have worked together to build the Merrick Jewish Center. To quote Carol Burnett, change is growth. So may we change and grow and look forward to what I know will be a very bright and exciting future for the Merrick Jewish Center under the leadership of a new rabbi, whomever he or she may be. But just a little more Carol Burnett. I'm not the singer in the family, as you all know, but I'm so glad we had this time together just to laugh or sing a song. Seems we just got started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long. So, L'chaim, and to the Merrick Jewish Center and its bright future ahead.
In the book of Exodus, God instructs Moses to tell the Israelites to make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. And so as they wandered in the wilderness, the Israelites literally erected the tabernacle in the center of the tribes, symbolizing its place at the center of the Jewish people. And for more than 2 millennia, synagogues have served the Jewish people as a Beit HaKnesset, a house of assembly, a Beit HaTefillah, a house of prayer, and as a Beit HaMidrash, a house of study. Now at the Merrick Jewish Center, this sanctuary, the sanctuary in which we sit right now, serves as the center of our synagogue and of our congregation. And it is here, in this very place, that we fulfill those roles: prayer, study, and assembly. It is where our congregation strives to become a Kahila Kedosha, a holy community. And at the center of this sanctuary for more than 43 years, Rabbi Charles A. Klein has taught us and inspired us to strive to reach higher every day, to follow and observe our tradition just a little bit more, to give of ourselves just a little bit more, to love just a little bit more. So what could possibly be more fitting than to dedicate this sanctuary in his honor? There really is no better way to recognize our rabbi and all of his numerous achievements, too many to count really, and everything that he has meant to our congregation and to all of us personally, than to name this sanctuary, this place that he loves so much, the Rabbi Charles A. Klein Sanctuary. So, as we have revealed, the plaque that we will permanently and prominently display in the anteroom as you enter the sanctuary, let me read you the inscription. The Rabbi Charles A. Klein Sanctuary, Harav Aharon Couple Ben Mordechai. This sanctuary is dedicated to our beloved Rabbi Charles A. Klein, commemorating his retirement after 43 years as the rabbi of the Merrick Jewish Center, Congregation Or Torah, and with gratitude and love to his devoted wife, Betty. Our tradition teaches that each of us has the capacity to do for others, to help strengthen our community, to live a meaningful life, to be a positive role model, and to help make this world a better and richer place for all people. In Charles A. Klein, our rabbi, our teacher, our friend, we have no greater example. October 24th, 2021, 19 Cheshvan 5782. That's the inscription. You know, a wonderful moment like this, it's a gift to all of us. For we can celebrate together not only our beloved rabbi, get comfortable for a minute, but I'm going to ask you to stand again. We celebrate not only our beloved rabbi, but this remarkable community of ours, a community that has supported all of us for so many years, through days of celebration and through difficult days, a community that will continue to grow and serve future generations for many, many years to come. So I ask that we share the blessing of Shehechianu together, thanking God for having given us life, for having sustained us, and for allowing us to arrive at this moment. So, if you will, please rise, and let us offer the prayer together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Kindly be seated. Rabbi? You in the mood to say a few words? You ready? Ladies and gentlemen, Rabbi Charles A. Klein.
Thank you, everyone. Just give me a minute. It's big. It's very big. Howard, thank you. Everyone, thank you. To the committee of beloved, dear, wonderful, special, devoted friends, we are grateful. We cherish you, and this evening you created Linda and Lou Altman, Howie and Eileen Siegel, Ellen and Alan Sussman, Frank Sapovitz. No one knows better than I do what they have meant to this congregation, all of these people, for so long. No one knows. And no one knows, as I do, how much not only they, but so many, and so many who are no longer with us, made this day possible. To Howard Teagle, who has become a very, very dear friend to me. He's a friend, he's an advisor. He's someone I can go to, and I do. To the officers and board members, I thank you. Betty joins me. We thank you. This is a pretty amazing thing. This sanctuary. This has been my place. I have loved walking into this shul for over 43 years. You see those words on top of the ark? Years ago we had people suggest, what should we write? What should be the theme of this sanctuary? And so above the ark it says, Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. Worship God joyfully in simcha. I've wanted this to be a place of joy, of powerful Jewish moments, of community. This lectern, this pulpit, has been my therapy couch. When I was moved by injustice, I spoke about it here. When I was sad, I shared my feelings from here. When life punched me, you heard my pain. When I was elated, I wanted to speak to you about it. I know it's crazy, but this lectern, Howard believes that it's going to disappear, that I'm going to abscond with it, set it up in our living room, and then on Shabbos mornings I'm going to have Betty in my congregation and say, will Betty please rise right now as we turn to page 156. So if I say to you, I treasure this sanctuary, I know it's not the most beautiful sanctuary in America, but it is the most beautiful sanctuary in America to me. It's the only one I ever cared about. It's really the only one I really ever wanted to be in. There's one issue. Howard, where's Howard? Can I have that? The plaque is beautiful. You know, can you see the plaque? Yeah, you can. You know, there's a problem in this country. It's called recency. Everything is about what you look like now. I know it's late, but and it's a beautiful photograph, don't get me wrong. But I thought I thought that this might be a bit better. This was my first official Merrick Jewish Center photograph back in 1978. Do you see why? And do you understand why I had to retire now? Another few years, do you know what I would look like in that photograph? Oh. And a few years later. And now. I want to just take a few moments. Everyone who came to this lectern tonight, they're dear and special to me in very deep and very, very, very deep ways. This man, this rabbi friend of mine, Rabbi Jerry Wahlberg, and Mimi. You know, when I came to Merrick in 1978, I was a kid. This guy, this rabbi, he was it. He was the big deal. And he wrote me a letter, first letter of congratulations, welcoming me into the community. And I think Jerry knows and Mimi knows. It was a very wonderful relationship that goes on and on and on because we're that close. But I always look to him, and he knows it. You know, Betty had a support group. What did I have? I had to learn by myself. I had Jerry Wahlberg, who was always generous with his advice. Always generous. We've had some incredible times together. Friendship endures because my gratitude to Jerry and Mimi, who really both took us under their wings, is without end. Jerry, Mimi, how was I so lucky to come to a town to have you for all those years? And Rabbi Derma, you know, and Rabbi Tillis, if I can say that at the end of the day, and I mean this, that I had some role in your rabbinate, Ravid's rabbinate, that would be enough for me. I mean it. When you succeed, when I hear, as I heard last week, people tell me how well, how terrifically you're doing. And when I speak to your emeritus, as I did last week, I feel so good, Jack. I feel so good. And Ravid, I'm just so happy for him. I have my two young men. We plucked them out of rabbinical school. I may have been cantorial challenged, but I knew how to pick assistant rabbis who became great, great rabbis. And Rabbi Jack Derma is just beginning. You know, my brother Eric and Jeff are here, and Barb, who's a sister to us. Eric's been saying to me, because Eric, where are you? You're over there. Eric, I'm 21 years older than Eric. We were in Israel when my mother announced to us in a letter she was pregnant. We came back from Israel and there's a baby brother. But I have these wonderful brothers. My brother Alan is always there to my right on the plaque with Mom and Dad and with Betty's parents. And Eric always says to me, the last few months he's been obsessed like I'm going to do something crazy. He says, Charles, 2 more months. He works on a trading desk. It's his trading desk. So his language is a little bit graphic. He says, Charlie, 6 weeks. Don't. I'm 70 years old. The worst I'm going to do is cheat at pickleball. What do you think I'm going to do? And our kids, Josh, Barry, Nomi, Avram, I love you. I'm proud of you. You've heard all this stuff about preachers' kids. I don't want to go into that anymore. It was what it was. But your mom and dad are only 70. A part of life is just beginning for us. And you won't have to hear, Dad, is this place, that place, that we'll hear. We want to be more a part of your life. And the kids and the grandchildren. Darren asked me a few weeks ago, Zadie, can you come over for Shabbos? I said, Darren, I have a bar mitzvah. I have to be in shul. I have to work. I said, next year I'll be able to take time off. He says, Zadie, you're retiring. Next year, you're going to be off all the time. You don't have to take any time off. This time is deeply painful for me. The days and weeks are slipping by. I remember it was 7 months to go. All right. But 1 month, that's close. That's close. We're standing, all of us, because I know why you're here. We're all at a crossroads. We're at a crossroads of life. How we got here so fast, I don't know. But gee, I look at the pictures, and I have thousands of photos. We were young. And it was 5 minutes ago. Kenny gave me that certificate of Rabbi Emeritus, who was back in 88, 89, whatever it was, when he was president. He gave me the life contract. I have it in my study. Alan was a treasurer, signed it. Now Rabbi Emeritus. Who can believe it? I've loved this place. I've loved our congregation. Going through the files, the photos. I've been living on memory lane for a while now. Traveling those highways we can't go back to again. I don't want to go through tonight all the names of the people who will always be in my heart, but there's one person here I want to mention. He spoke before, George Feld. He flew up from Boynton Beach. Just so dear to us, George. I know you had a lot of explaining to do back in 1978. And the truth of the matter is, it did take time. It took time and patience, forgiveness. But I really did try to become the rabbi you and others thought I could one day be. That was what I wanted to be. I look at the photos of all the people from the first 10, 20 years. So many are gone. But I don't forget them. I never forget them. If you're here on Friday nights, you know I have my own little tradition. I walk along, see whose yahrzeit is being observed that week. I focus in on a few people as I go through the wall, through the plaques, because I remember them. I'm indebted to them. I know who they were. They were here. I took them to where they rest, and I remember them. Never forget them. I thank you for the honor of being your rabbi, for trusting me when you had painful decisions to make, trusting me to be with you in your heartbreak, to support you when you were overwhelmed by life, to share your joyous moments. I thank you for being patient, because I'm not just saying this with false humility. I stumbled plenty along the way. Plenty. And I would go to Jerry Wahlberg and say, how do I get out of this one? Or my dear friend of blessed memory, Stanley Platic. I was lucky I had two older colleagues who treated me with the love of older brothers and gave me what I couldn't do by myself sometimes. I thank you for calming me down when I was sometimes headstrong. I thank you for understanding my convictions, even though sometimes you may not have shared them. I thank you for giving me reason to believe that when I came to this lectern, this pulpit, and I spoke the words that I needed to say, you let me believe that they mattered. I thank you for encouraging me to take a role beyond this congregation, and that's been spoken about already. I'm old school in that respect, and I follow Jerry Wahlberg in that respect. Rabbi of a synagogue. There's a role out there in the world as well. He was president of the New York Board of Rabbis. A few years later, I became president. Merrick had two presidents of the New York Board of Rabbis. This little town that no one knows where it is on the South Shore. And he and I did that together. I always had two goals. I really wanted to bring honor and pride to this congregation wherever I went. Could have been in Israel, could have been on a television interview, Congress, the White House, Russia. Wherever I went, it was always Rabbi Charles Klein, Merrick Jewish Center. In the days when I was not the former this and the former that and the ex this and the ex that, and you would see on NBC Rabbi Charles Klein, Merrick Jewish Center. Oprah, Merrick Jewish Center. I wanted you to be proud about this synagogue and what we were doing together. And then I really tried. I really tried to the limit of what one human being can do. One human being. To be the best rabbi I could be. A wonderful friend, a forever friend in the congregation, sent me a note, and he listed all the times we've shared together, a lengthy list of moments in the family. And he said that with every occasion, it was always, call Rabbi Klein, call Rabbi Klein, call the rabbi, call the rabbi. And over the decades in a big congregation, that's a lot of calls to the rabbi. A lot of calls. And I tried to always be with you. I really did. And where I may not have been, it's not because of lack of desire, it's just sometimes there was nothing left. No time. People have asked me about some of my greatest moments. You heard them. You heard them. I'll never forget my installation as rabbi. I'll never forget all the times, the galas, life contract, 25th year, 40th year, how many other times? A lot of times. But they were all wonderful. I'll never forget when we were in Israel and we dedicated the lounge for the pilots at the Air Force Base in Hatzerim. And we went out and they said, there's a ceremony that when someone flies their first, you remember it, their first sortie, their first solo flight, they come back and everyone lines up and gives them a kick in the behind. And they said to me, Rabbi, you do it. And I walked over to this pilot and I said, I can't kick you. You defend the state of Israel. I'll never forget it. I'm going to kick you? Let me bless you instead. There was the time when 40 of us went through the gates of Auschwitz-Birkenau with our little Israeli flags, singing Am Yisrael El Chai. I'll remember every Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur when I could stand here and this place was packed. Packed. And I just had that moment with my congregation. For you, too many moments sometimes, but the dedications of the buildings, everything along the way. My heart is filled with gratitude for all of our past presidents and the officers and the board of directors, all of them. Anyone who has played a big role in this congregation or a little role. They spoke about my relationship with presidents. You know, my presidents were very dear to me. Why? Because we had a shared covenant. We knew what this was about. And we understood that we were responsible to the past, to the present, and the future. And we understood that we could never, ever stand pat. We had to reimagine, rebuild, grow. There are so many of them who have departed from this world. And I remember them well. Their memories are a blessing to all of us in this sanctuary. And there are others who just couldn't be here tonight. But I know they would want to be. But they can't because of the pandemic. Friends, I wanted to tell you a story that I think you've heard about, all the issues of kids, rabbinic kids. Avram wasn't born yet, so he missed this episode. But one day I was going to a funeral. It was a snowy day, and Betty called me on the phone. So it had to be somewhere in the 90s when the cell phone was the size of a football. And she said, school is canceled the rest of the day, you've got to pick up the kids. I said, Betty, I'm in a hearse. What do you want me to do? She said, I don't care. I have Avram here in the house. You have got to pick up the kids. So I looked at the driver and I said, Jimmy, how about a bottle of Chivas Regal if you pick my kids up at yeshiva? True thing, right? So we go to the yeshiva, pull up in a hearse. We had taken care of the burial by then. I go in, the Rosh Yeshiva, the head of the yeshiva, says, what are you doing parking a hearse in front of the yeshiva? I said, I'll be out of here in a minute. Just give me a minute. Let me get the kids in the car. We're going. So they're little kids, Josh, Barry, Naomi. They go, we're not sitting in there. I said, you are, because otherwise you're staying here overnight. So they squeezed into the front seat next to the driver. Where was I going to go? I crawled into the back, and I was sitting in the back of the hearse. Do you remember? And I'm talking to the kids, and Jimmy, the driver, says to me, Rabbi, I don't mind doing the favor, but please don't talk to me from back there. It's very, very upsetting. Helena Eilenberg, I'm sorry. You know, they wouldn't tell me anything. I had no idea who was speaking. I had no idea of anything. These characters, I think the Manhattan Project, there was more known about the Manhattan Project than I knew about this over the last few months. So Helena, you know, I've had wonderful, wonderful principals, educational directors, your predecessor, Larry Feinberg. You have been a joy to this congregation, a wondrous educational director, a dear friend, and one of the things that makes me feel comfortable about moving on is that I know you're here. And that's really important to me, because I know very few people have your kind of dedication. Very, very few. You are extraordinary. Thank you. So friends, I want to go to Acharon HaChaviv. Last, first, most beloved. I was blessed with my wife. The rabbinate is what the rabbinate is. When I decided to become a rabbi, I remember it was 50 years ago. I was on kibbutz, Sde Boker, and I taped a cassette to send to my folks, because you didn't use the phone to dial long distance in those days from Israel to America. You crazy? My father wouldn't have accepted the charges, right? So I made a cassette and I told him I was going to be a rabbi. I also told Betty. And we were young. We were in love. We knew we were going to be married at that point, right? Right. Life was beginning for us, and we had no idea what to expect. Right, Mimi? No idea what to expect. I had no idea, Betty had less. I didn't know anything about the rabbinate, other than for some reason, this was what I needed to do. And this incredible beautiful, terrific, wonderful woman, had faith in me that somehow this would work out. You know, when we had nothing, and I mean nothing, and I needed money to buy some books so I could study at home. And when we did that, it meant doing without something else. I said, Betty, I have to have this book. We bought the book. We bought other books. And we had nothing. It says in the Talmud, Ishti zot beiti. My wife, she is my home. Betty has been my home, my anchor. She has filled in every void that my life has left for the family. And she has understood me. She's understood that this is what I was to do. Now, soon she's going to have me more than she's had for the last 48 and a half years. So don't be surprised if in a year from now, Betty says to me, can you unretire? When we were married back in 1973, she said to me under the chuppah, the words, Ad shematzati et sheva nafshi achaziti velo erpena. When I found the one that my soul loves, I held on and would not let him go. And that's what I say to her now. I long ago found the one that my soul loves, and I'll hold on to her. For as long as we can. Dear friends, we have grown old together. We really have. And I know we play at it and we keep active, but we've grown old together. We're not 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70. Bingo. We've lost too many along the way. And I think you know what that's done to me. I think you know. Imagining my life no longer as rabbi of the Merrick Jewish Center, I don't know how I do that. I don't know how I do that. Betty says, this has been your oxygen. This has been your oxygen. I'll probably wind up in therapy. Got it. This is the time I need to begin to let go, hoping that the future will still allow us to have a place in this community. It's our community. You're our friends. You're dear to us. What I do in terms of retirement, I do, but these relationships bind us together. I'm a believer in this congregation, always have been, always will be. There'll be a time of transition, I know that. And Rabbi Howie Siegel, classmate at the seminary, friend, colleague, will take the congregation through the beginning of the transition. And then new beginnings. The future is already happening. I see, and I was with this morning, young, enthusiastic families. They are ready and waiting to make the future of this congregation, but they need the guidance and the love of the people who have made this what it is for all these years. Just like we did 45 years ago, 43 years ago, 40 years ago. I'm hoping and praying that the next rabbi will be a great rabbi, that you'll embrace, that you'll give him or her the honor, the warmth, the love you've given me. That's what I'll ask of you. You know, I forgot to mention, for 30 years, I had this incredible secretary, administrative assistant, Pearl, 30 years. I've been looking through the files, what we did, the programs we generated, the work she did. She was amazing, of blessed memory. Jamie's here, Jamie Cohn. Hi, Jamie. So I can't say goodbye this evening without a song. I'm going to take you back to 1964. Chad and Jeremy. They say that all good things must end someday. Autumn leaves must fall. But don't you know that it hurts me so, hurts us so, to say goodbye to you. Wish we didn't have to go, no, 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 no. And when the rain, da-da-da-dum, beats upon our window pane, we'll think of MJC again and dream of you, and dream of you. Thank you, everyone.
I know the hour is late, but we have some beautiful presentations for Rabbi and Betty, so stick with us for another 15 minutes or so. So what is a retirement celebration without gifts for the person retiring? Of course, the sanctuary being named in Rabbi's honor is an extraordinary, sentimental, and much-deserved gift. And then there are some less serious gifts, and that's where I come in. Now that Rabbi will not be writing weekly sermons, attending staff meetings, leading services, he will have much more time on his hands. I know that Betty has already bought him a new set of golf clubs for his birthday this past June, so he is all set with his equipment. And Rabbi has confided in me, that his golf game is really kind of rusty and is not up to par. So my theory has always been, if you can't play well, you need to look good. So Rabbi, now you can compete for the best dressed golfer at your club down in Delray as we present you with a first-class Payne Stewart golf outfit, appropriately befitting for a man of your stature and your reputation. We hope that you will wear it well. What do you think, Klein family? It fits them good? The knickers are good, right? You have to wear it, though. Okay. He won't stand. He's going to fall over. Okay, next. Okay. In your wildest dreams, I don't think you would have imagined that the following people would be mentioned at your retirement celebration: Rudy May, George Frazier, Jeff Nelson, Adam Warren, and Jonathan Loizaga. Rabbi, do you recognize any of these names? Okay. Yes. They are all individuals who have played for the New York Yankees. None of them were Yankee immortals. None of them have a monument in Monument Park. We are not talking about Ruth or Gehrig or Mantle or DiMaggio, but all of these players had one thing in common. They all wore number 43 on their uniform. Knowing how hard you have tried to, during your career here at the Merrick Jewish Center, to sway the congregation to root for your Yankees, we could not let this night pass without giving you some recognition for your efforts. After researching the Yankees' history of players who have worn number 43, I can confidently say that tonight, you have now become the most well-known and accomplished person to be assigned that number by the New York Yankees. The inscription reads as follows: Rabbi Charles A. Klein, an illustrious 43-year career as rabbi of the Merrick Jewish Center, 1978 to 2021. Just as a side note, I had to purchase this jersey, and before I was able to get it framed, it was hanging in my bedroom. And I have to tell you, as a diehard Mets fan, it was really uncomfortable looking at it every day from the time it was there. Rabbi, I hope Betty will allow you to display it prominently in your home here in Merrick or in Florida. Mazel tov.
Betty, we know you probably would have been happy with a bagel too, so I hope the rabbi shares it with you. Thank you, Ellen. But as you saw, that's not enough for us. We know that when you and the rabbi were dating, you thought he was going to be a lawyer, never imagining you would be a rabbi's wife. True. And you probably wondered what that meant for you. What we do know is that while you worked and pursued your own interests, you were always at the rabbi's side, and you managed to put a positive spin on everything you do. Merrick Jewish Center cannot be the warm and caring place it is without you, and we appreciate all you did in allowing the rabbi to be here for us. You have chaired events, co-chaired trips, hosted countless Shabbat dinners, and been a friend to many, especially to me. Your kindness, warmth, and smile makes everyone feel welcome. Like many retired husbands, we understand the rabbi will be doing the laundry. So that gives you more time to be playing canasta. Thank you, Al. It is now time, we hope, for the two of you to have uninterrupted conversations and leisurely dinners. An appreciation, gratitude, and love that we all feel for you. Please accept this gift on behalf of the congregation. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Schwartz. It's truly an honor to be here to help celebrate and recognize the life and achievements of Rabbi and Betty Klein. Michelle and I have been privileged to be members of Merrick Jewish Center for 36 years. We were in our mid-30s when we moved out to Merrick. 2 kids from Brooklyn, we like to say. Rabbi and Betty immediately made us feel comfortable and part of the Merrick Jewish Center family. Rabbi and I would meet for breakfast and lunch on a regular basis. Wherever we went, it was like being with a rock star. Elvis was in the house. Everyone came over to say hello, strike up a conversation, talk about their children, their parents, their relatives, and their neighbors. When we finally sat down, he would say to me, "How are your children? How is Michelle? How are you doing?" The truth is, it was a little intimidating in the beginning. This is Rabbi Klein, the leader of Merrick Jewish Center, our spiritual leader, a driving force of South Shore, Long Island. Then one day, I recalled the movie, The Wizard of Oz. I'm sure you all remember the scene. Dorothy, the Tin Man, the Lion, and the Scarecrow were all standing in the center of Emerald City. We see the great and powerful Oz projected in the sky. The wizard gives the Tin Man a heart, the Lion courage, Scarecrow a brain, and then it was Dorothy's turn. The great and powerful wizard's image is in the sky, and everyone is looking up and trembling and listening. And then little Toto pulls the curtain, and we see Frank Morgan, just a man standing there. I then realized that Rabbi and Betty are people just like us. They have children and grandchildren, brothers and parents. They deal with the same life issues as we do, but they balance their own personal lives so that they can be there for all of us. Rabbi is a true first responder. When a congregant of MJC has a crisis, Rabbi is running to their aid day or night. Typical Sunday for most of us are juggling soccer, baseball, tumbling, and dance. There's a play date, a party, and what are we going to have for dinner? A typical Sunday for Rabbi is program at Merrick Jewish Center in the morning, then a funeral, maybe an unveiling, visit a congregant in a hospital, and then make a shiver call. Life is a journey. It's not where you go, it's who you travel with. All of us have been so fortunate to be traveling life's journey with Rabbi and Betty. Rabbi gave my youngest daughter a Hebrew name 33 years ago. He bar mitzvahed my 2 daughters and sons. He stood under the chuppah with us, and he married our 3 children. Michelle and I are truly blessed. Rabbi has welcomed our 7 grandchildren into the Jewish faith and gave them their Hebrew name. And he was there for our family when both Michelle and I lost our parents. We are all fortunate to be traveling this journey with Rabbi and Betty. They say sports is a myriad of life. It is history in the making. We've all witnessed athletes perform their careers, normally 2 to 5 years. And then there are those athletes that are legends. Derek Jeter, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady come to mind. These athletes all have many things in common. They are humble and serving leaders. They put their teammates first. When faced with adversity, they take a breath and move forward. Their teammates believe in them. They're all winners, and they all have it. The it factor is described as an intangible personal characteristic that exudes confidence, touches people around them, and allows everyone to believe everything will work out. Rabbi Klein truly has it. I know we can all visualize the high holidays pre-pandemic, and we see the procession walking around the temple, returning the Torah to the ark. He walks and stops and touches each one of us. His smile, the hug, the touch on the arm, You just feel it. The warmth, the sincerity, and the strength. He truly is a legend. This past Yom Kippur, I think we can all agree that the rabbi's sermon was very personal and moving. When he concluded, he said, "The end." I spoke with him after, and I said, "It's not the end. This is the beginning of the next chapter." Rabbi Betty? Your warmth, your wisdom, your inspiration will be in our hearts forever. You will continue to be part of our lives, and we at Merritt Jewish Center, part of yours and Betty's lives forever and ever. To that end, we've established the Rabbi Charles and Betty Klein Legacy Fund. Through your generosity, all of you, we've collected in excess of $100,000. If you have not contributed yet, please do so. In the future, if you would like to contribute, please do so. The Rabbi Charles and Betty Klein Legacy Fund will provide quality education and cultural programs now and for decades to come. It is now my pleasure to present to my friends this scroll honoring the commencement of the establishment of the Rabbi Charles and Betty Klein Legacy Fund.
One more gift. Lou and I are honored to present you with another gift from our congregation. Oh, I'm going to take this off if you don't mind. You have both spent countless hours in this building, and particularly in this sanctuary. We know that when you leave us officially at the end of November, your hearts will still be in this building and in this sanctuary. Our committee wanted to give you something of the sanctuary to remind you of the days and nights spent here. We couldn't give you your lectern, even though I hear it's going to end up in the living room, your seat on the bema, or even Betty's seat in the pews. However, we thought that a special reproduction of the bema might just be the thing. We hope that this token gives you warm, sweet memories of the special times that all of us have spent with you in this very special place. We were fortunate enough to find a wonderful Israeli artist, David Fisher, who was able to transform a photo of the bema into a wonderful reminder for both of you. We hope that you will find a special place in your home and that this gift will bring only special memories your way. On behalf of our congregation, please accept this beautiful paper-cut reproduction of our bema. We look forward to seeing you back here with us in the sanctuary. If not on the bema, with us in the pews, and especially in row E, don't forget. We wish you both good health and length of days to enjoy whatever the future brings your way.
I think they got enough swag for tonight. What do you think? It's late. Just another couple of moments of your time, please. Thank you. So Steve Cusin said it. Steve Cusin said a little while ago, or probably a long while ago, that the relationship between a rabbi and a congregation is likened to a marriage. Well, Steve had it right. It's the union, in our case, it's the union between the Kleins and our congregation. And it's a union that is created, as Howard said a little while ago, a Kehilat Kadosha, a holy community, a sacred association with a divine dimension and a transcendent purpose. It's a union in which all those with whom Rabbi and Betty come into contact feel they are better for that contact. It's a union that has enriched our minds, our hearts, and our souls. and it's a union that's worthy of God's most precious blessing. So I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to thank those on live stream who are still listening. And I want to thank all the members of our committee and all the volunteers and all the technical crew, and especially Frank as well, for all the work that they've all done. I hope you all agree that it's been a wonderful and memorable evening, and I know it conveyed the love we all feel for Charlie and Betty. Please know, however, that we're not finished celebrating. We have another very different but very special outdoor event planned 2 weeks from today on Sunday, November 7th at 1:45. Please meet us in the parking lot. Yep, the parking lot. And you can bring your kids. You won't be disappointed. One final story. Back in the day, the rabbi used to hand out candy bars on the first day of Hebrew school. Why? So the kids would always think sweetly of Hebrew school. So as you leave the building tonight, first, turn around and see that the sanctuary is named for Rabbi Klein. There's a lovely plaque that goes with this one right over the sanctuary door on both sides. And also, be sure to pick up a sweet little treat we have for each of you. And we hope that you too will remember this evening and remember our dear Rabbi and Betty with sweetness. Rabbi, do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Erev Tov, everyone. Get home safe.